Hello, everyone. Richard Carlton. Welcome to another awesome broadcast day. I'm going to ask Margaret to shut off. Actually, I'm going to shut off my feed here briefly. I want to shut off the screen share because I got to move some stuff around here real quick, but everyone should still hear me. Welcome to another awesome broadcast day of the FileMaker platform. I'm here with Jacob Taylor. Jacob Taylor, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Good. All right. So what did we learn last week from your perspective? I'm using this to briefly dodge around a delay that I have right here. I need to move a file real quick. So what did we learn about 19.3 from your perspective last week? What is your recap items?
Sure. I think the highest level perspective is it's a combination of two things. One, we have a lot of quality improvements, and that's both in the client and the server part of the product. And then there's a bunch of, we'll say, technological change, which are mostly improvements, actually, especially around things like swapping out the web viewers on Windows. Those are going to use Edge instead of Internet Explorer 11 now, and stuff like that. But just sort of improvements in that general area.
Cool. Yeah, no, it's a pretty good release. And of course, we had a lot of great tech. File transfer is almost done. So yeah, today is a kind of a cleanup of that. Some people missed the broadcast from Wednesday. Thursday and Friday, we talked about the Linux install. There's no way we can really do justice to that. If you want to know in-depth Linux conversation, definitely feel free to. I'm going to go ahead and go back to sharing my screen here real quick because I got my files now finally. Thank you very much. So the issue is one where the Linux was a kind of a Thursday, Friday. You could really cover it in 1 hour, good hour, long hour, but there were a lot of good questions about it. And Linux seems to be this thing that we're going to have for a while now. Claris had previously, years ago, released a FileMaker server, and there weren't enough Linux people, I guess, within the FileMaker community. The FileMaker community didn't have deep enough chops for that to understand that. Once again, we're talking about what is a senior engineer before. And one of the skill sets a senior might have would be Linux, right? I'm not, and if you're a FileMaker senior developer, you don't have to have skills in every specific like command line environment, but having some technical depth in APIs or PHP or JavaScript or Node.js or even CSS or something. Really quick. So today is kind of a rehash of the FileMaker 19.3 release. So we covered, we can cover a little bit more of it today, but what I did is I did an interview with HOnza, right? And so what I want to do is I'm going to play just briefly this right here. I'm going to make it full screen. And the idea is that this was an interview. HOnza from 2.4U does a lot of performance testing. He's the one that did crazy amounts of performance testing. And we can say definitively that FileMaker 19.3 with the M1 Silicon processor is like 2.5 times or 2.2 times faster on average, given all the tests it does. Now, if I play this real quick. Hi, everyone. Richard Carlton here. Do you guys hear that? Did you hear my voice talking?
Yes.
You did hear that. Great. All right. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to play this real quick for you. It's about 30 minutes. We can pick up on the back end. This is a more detailed conversation from Honza's perspective on the performance testing of that processor. So once again, there's a Windows release. The Windows people got a brand new overhaul web viewer. Really awesome. It's a long time in coming. It's there. So the Windows people should be happy. The Linux people get Ubuntu instead of a CentOS OS, which is great. They should be reasonably happy for a period of time. The Mac people get M1 processor support. So if you buy a newer Mac over the last, say, year or 6 months, and you buy any Macs going forward that are M1 processor, which most of them should be, you're going to be looking at a 200% performance improvement. So we're going to talk about that right here in this video. I'm going to make myself disappear and go full screen and go. We'll go here. Go. Hi, everyone. Richard Carlton here. I'm here today with HOnza. HOnza, how are you?
Hello. I am very fine. I'm glad to talk to you.
So, HOnza, what company do you work with? You own a company there in what used to be Czechoslovakia. Now, what's it called? The Czech Republic? Is that what you call it?
Yes. Official name is Czech Republic. The short name is Czechia. We Czechs are still having trouble getting used to the short name, but it sounds good. And we actually have office in Prague, the center of the nicest city in our country, who everyone likes to visit. If you aren't here yet, you're welcome to come and see some old architecture.
Sure.
And I'm co-owner and co-founder of 2 4U. We originally called the company 2 4U because we started as two, me and my friend. Now we are 4 owners, but about 50 people total, and we do a lot of stuff, software.
How many people?
Around 50.
50 people.
50, yes, exactly.
That's quite a large organization. That might be one of the larger FileMaker consultancies out there. Interesting. A lot of server testing and performance testing, correct?
Yes, that's one of the things that we started doing, I believe, around 2008, when we actually wanted to optimize our own system. So I was applying a little bit of knowledge that I got from my previous career, where I worked for a manufacturing company, and there I actually went through a course of how to optimize manufacturing production lines. And I discovered that the same principles can be applied to software as well. So we built a tool we called 2 4U FM Bench around the principles, which basically is finding the bottleneck, identifying the bottleneck, optimizing the bottleneck, and so on. And the nice thing about it is these simple principles lead to optimization all the time. The only problem people are usually going to have with it is that they simply cannot go and follow the basic rules, and typically either give up too soon or step aside and go sideways. But if you apply the principles the right way, then you always get better results.
Okay, so you have a bench test here, and so you've been doing testing on the new M1 Apple Silicon processor, and specifically, I guess, with 19.2, which was not really optimized. So it's a version of FileMaker not optimized. It works with M1, but doesn't not optimized. And now we have 19.3, which is optimized. And so can you show us what that looks like in terms of performance improvement?
Yes, definitely. So basically, this tool has a lot of different tests where I have a table of a million records with fake data. And out of that, I'm working with a subset of 100,000 records doing various operations. And I also have standard automated tests that I set up specifically for these comparisons. And here are the results that I ran recently. For many years, I'm using a setup with an old Mac Pro, which I use as a reference setup. So I used it here as a reference setup, which I give a score of 1. And okay, anything else, I score by basically calculating how much faster it is. So score of 2 would mean it's twice as fast as the reference setup. Okay. Here are various results that I tried. Obviously, different factors play.
Can we zoom in on that? Because that's going to be really small on screen. Can we zoom in on this a little bit?
Yes.
Let's see.
Try like
there you go. Yeah, that'd be way better. Yeah. Now we can see it. All right. So yeah. So well, immediately I'm looking at things over here, and it goes from twice as fast to 14 as fast. But really, if the reference was the M1 under Rosetta, then it's what? Yes. 700% faster about?
Yes. This is the overall score. It's actually a result of calculating a simple average from 111 results. So it's more correct to go to the individual results and look at those, because there are some big surprises.
All right, so real quick, I'm going to interrupt right here. So this is obviously, for those of you not following, this is a recording from last week, because HOnza had to go on vacation, but this is an important part. So anything really a 2.0 or 2.2 is the score for the 19.2 version of FileMaker running on the M1, right? It's the previous version. It's what your i7 performance will be very similar to that. And so you see scores over there. So remember, 2.0 is kind of like your base reference speed if you're on 19.2. And if you're at 4 relative to 2.2, you're twice as fast as that, right? See what's going on over here. So if we see this over here, and this is much faster, but then you have some that are like this, like a random one that might be actually marginally slower, which is kind of bizarre, which means that there's some weird engineering going on there. But vast majority of these are way, 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 way faster.
So instead of focusing on the average, I would look at individual tests. And
all right, so he said instead of looking at the average, look at the individual test. Okay, I have a life and it's already pretty busy, and so no, I'm not going to look at the individual test. But he geeks out on this stuff like this. Is kind of like a Jacob Taylor kind of a guy, and they geeks out on the individual test, which is fine. But at the end of the day, if you're a business person and FileMaker is a supporting tool, then yeah, just take my word for it. It's about 2.2 times faster, or 220% faster, something like that. Or
I also have some charts here. So when I go to this chart view, you can see the comparison in graphical way. So here, this is the first test, which is finding 90% of 100,000 records. And all these tests are running from MacBook Pro, connecting over a network to different FileMaker servers. The slowest ones here are in the bottom, are actually in the cloud. So those are actually this is a cloud hosting, which is hosted in a city about 200 kilometers from Prague, and this is a simulated wide area network by basically running it on local network but slowing it down intentionally using a tool called network link conditioner. But right now we are talking about the M1 processor. So if we go focus on the M1, you can see that specifically this first find request, and this is again repeating. I'm connecting from MacBook Pro on Intel. That's the client for all the tests. But what's different is the server. In both these cases, it's Mac Mini with M1 processor. The only difference is whether I installed a FileMaker Server 19.2 or FileMaker Server 19.3.
okay, can I hang on? So you're saying FileMaker Server, but it says LAN local there on it, right? So are these a network test, or are these a local solution test?
Sorry, I forgot. This is the first time I see these updated results were explicitly on your request, which you sent me last week. I ran also local test when this was the local means the test file was open locally in FileMaker Pro running on that Mac Mini.
Okay.
So the overland means I was connecting from the MacBook Pro.
Perfect. Okay, perfect. So
local means in FileMaker Pro locally from hard drive.
okay, so let me look at this. Slow down my brain a little bit here. So 19.3 on local is that speed. The Mac Mini, the compare against that would be the one that's 2 down on that. So it's what, 50% faster, 30% faster, something like that.
More. This is score like 2.7, 2.6, and this is 4.6. So it's almost twice as fast.
So once again, that's this specific test right here. Once again, it's finding 90% of records by index and field iteration 1, right? So, right. So once again, this is specific test. So the test will vary, but that was the point of the conversation before. Is that it's kind of an average, right? Makes sense.
It does.
And then on the but go back a second on the LAN. It's the same kind of performance. Now, did you put the M1 server on both of them, or is it or the 19.3 server on? Where's the 19? Is the 19.3 server involved here? I think you said this, but I'm
basically I just renamed it. It's native and Rosetta. So 19.2 is this one with Rosetta. That basically runs the FileMaker server under the Rosetta emulation, while the native one is the 19.3 running natively using the M1 code.
Okay, so it's almost twice as fast in both situations. So.
Yeah, exactly. But the results are different depending on what test I run. So, for instance, this is the second find. This is so much different because obviously there is a cache being used for subsequent.
Yeah. So this is a really important moment right here. So what you see is that he does the test a second time, and so one of you, who was this? Ruben was asking about this, or David Angel was asking about this. It's not a comparison with Windows, really. Well, here's the reality. If you assume that generally Intel Macs and Intel Windows machines would run FileMaker with approximate same speed, the Apple Silicon processors, basically, and I was talking to someone about this, Jacob or someone, they essentially build the RAM into the CPU processor itself. So the interaction, it's like, we went from spinning drives to SSDs, but they were still on the board and they had to talk across the bus on the board. Now the RAM on these chips is in the CPU, under the hood with the CPU. So there's no delay basically as it's talking to the RAM memory, right? So if you have 16 gig, computer, the 16 gigs is built, the RAM is built into the CPU. So that's why I think eventually other companies will have to do this, or Apple will just take over the entire world with their CPUs, which I don't see AMD and Intel going for that, right? So obviously they're going to do something to copy this tech, but for the time being, it's crazy fast. And you see this with the caching. The other one over here was where it had to kind of download it, right? So it's having to download it across the network and do some processing on both sides. As soon as the data is all local on the client, this thing just starts ripping like 20 times faster, right? 20. I mean, that's crazy faster. So that caching, because it's in the RAM already on the computer, on the CPU already has all the data, so it just shreds way faster. So kind of interesting, right? So sorry about that. Yes.
This is very hard to use for like serious comparison, because the caching plays a role significantly. But on the other side, in the real life, you also take advantage of the cache. So it does make kind of sense to compare. The only difference is which result will actually make affect in which situation. So for instance, if you keep working with the same data, you will use cache a lot. If you keep finding different data each time, then the results that are more relevant to you are those first find requests. But what's more interesting are other operations, such as when I return back to the list of the tests, and when I scroll here to find something like sorting, this is the most interesting result that I got. And I will have to run many more tests with this, but you see the difference, right? This is sorting 10,000 records by unindexed field, which contains a unique text value. So it's basically what I did is I ran a loop through all those records and put a unique ID into each record, and then I sorted those records by that value.
And this is what the first iteration, which means it's not cached, right? Not cached.
Exactly. It's the first iteration, which means it's not cached.
Not cached.
And you see that there is a significant difference between 19.3 and anything older here. The local one is still the difference between the two local operations reflects the difference between Rosetta and native code. But the difference between M1 native over network and Rosetta over network and everything else means that here we really took advantage of performing the sort operation on the server.
Wow. That's impressive. That's a major performance boost. So,
and other than that, if I simply go through the records, now you see that the cache is playing a role. So any subsequent sorts are simply proportional to whatever else I was trying.
So it's in a lot of cases. So what was the average? You said it was almost like twice as fast as a general rule, right?
Yes, as a general rule, between 1.5 and 2 times faster than the Rosetta emulation, which really means that. And basically, I ran the first test on the M1, I think in November last year, when those M1 Mac Minis were available. So my first surprise was that it was absolutely smooth installation, no problem at all. So kudos to Apple for again bringing emulation in a way that users don't see at all. But at the same time, when I tested it and compared it to the latest Mac Mini with Intel Core i7, I believe, the speed was almost identical. In some cases, the FileMaker 19.2 on Mac on M1, even under Rosetta, was faster than the fastest Intel.
Under Rosetta, right? Yeah.
Under Rosetta. So now when you count with the speed up of the native code, that means that just the M1 with the latest FileMaker server is going to be twice as fast as the latest Intel Mac Mini. So it's obviously Mac Mini still is a machine for like a small workgroup server with let's say up to 10 or 15 users. Not something you would be looking for running 100 users setup for, but for those small businesses at the cost of the hardware, cost of the energy, it's absolute winner for local server.
Yeah, I mean, but even on a hosted server, well, up on the internet, right? So say that again. On the internet, it's what, less dramatic, right? Say if you could put it up in a data center, a shared data center, right?
Well, yeah, this is quite interesting as well, because one of the test setup that I was testing here, which is here in the middle, it's Mac Mini in a data center. This is I think 4 years old Mac Mini. It's Intel Core i5.
Okay.
But when I check, it's important to see that there is one parameter of each setup, and that's latency. And many people already know that latency in the case of FileMaker
it's the killer.
It's more important than the bandwidth. So in this case, because the data center is in Prague, and I was in Prague as well. When I switched to the test where I was testing the Mac Mini in the data center here, and I checked the latency. So the latency was like
that's really fast. That's almost that. Yeah, in the San Francisco Bay Area, it goes 7 or 8 across the city. Right?
Wait a minute, this is wrong.
2 is really fast.
No. This I got wrong data here. I'm just looking at it. No, it's actually it. So it's really good. It's really good low latency access to the data center, definitely. And when I was checking the cloud here, which is in Brno, that one had still like only about 10 millisecond maximum. Like
that's typical for like the San Francisco Bay Area, about 10.
Yeah,
that's what you see.
So definitely not bad for cloud. But what I wanted to say here is when I compare the different tests, one of the tests that I started doing, I think 2 years ago, is kind of typical setup for using virtualist. It's quite a popular technique in the FileMaker world. Invented by Bruce Robertson, and this test actually is running a perform script on server, where the script on server finds records, returns them either as a tab delimited text or JSON, and the client then stores the data in a global variable and populates the data using after calculations from the global variable, which has the advantage of needing absolutely no communication with the server. And this technique actually minimizes the impact of latency. So when I check one of these tests, get and show 1,000 records, here you can see that the Mac Mini in the data center was even faster than Mac Pro on the local network. Even specifically in this case, it was even faster than the Mac Mini M1. But that's just a like small difference. It's you should say it's equal, and this is because the most significant part of the processing was actually getting the data processed on the server. So in this case, the power, the performance of the server is more significant or has higher importance than the network latency. So it's a good tip when you need to work over a slow network with a high latency. That's where virtual list is a good technique to use because then this technique minimizes the communication between the client and the server and lets you take advantage of the power of the server and client itself. Rather, when you just use native functionality of FileMaker, the network latency takes the biggest.
Okay. All right. Well, pretty impressive. Pretty impressive. So this is Bench Test 2.0. This is this a free download, a paid download? How do people get Bench Test 2.0?
Yeah. Well, this is still a beta version. It's a public beta. So the way you get it is that you actually go to 2foryousoftware.com and the latest article on the news. There you can download it for free along with the data, which you have two options. You can download either a small data set and then generate the test data yourself, which takes about 10 hours on a Mac Pro. Sorry, on MacBook Pro. The other option is that you download about a little bit over 2 gigabytes and you get the data pre-generated by me and you can immediately start testing. And what it has built in is that once you have the test done, you can submit it to our server. That way you actually in return get download of the reference test that I use for the reference for calculating the score. That way you enable the charts. And the other benefit is, especially if you are a hosting provider or service provider, whatever, all the tests that you submit, which are built from the standard test set with the 111 tests, will be published on our website in a chart as soon as we release a final version of this tool. So we are going to make this part of the tools placed on our website. There will be a live chart of top results, and unless someone tries to misuse it, we are going to make the results appear live after you submit them. So if you have a good setup and you want to tell the world this is a great setup, FileMaker performs best on this setup, you run this test, submit the results, and you get it listed as a top result on our website.
Yep. Awesome. Well, cool. Sounds awesome. It's impressive. And of course, for people who don't want to get down in the weeds too far, the short version is that the optimized code from Claris, what we call native code for FileMaker, which would be 19.3 for the M1 or any Apple Silicon processors that come after this. I guess they're talking about an M1X now at some point. The point is that it's just, it seems to be night and day better than Intel in terms of the processor. So Intel was making, I remember Intel making a stink about when Apple switched, saying, oh yeah, Intel's way better. But I don't know, anytime that you can go update the architecture and then people make an optimization in the software and you get basically double the performance, that just doesn't happen too often. That doesn't happen too often in the world, right?
Definitely. There is one small caveat. one of the reasons why Apple Silicon processors are so fast is because they have the memory, the RAM, integrated on the processor chip itself. So there is a very short distance between the processing unit and the memory, which makes it so fast. But the limitation of this is that you cannot expand the memory. So right now you cannot get an M1 processor with more than 16 gigs of RAM. And that's the main limitation for larger setups where you need multiple users, especially.
Yeah, I was telling people to buy the 16, buy the 16, buy the 16. You can't upgrade it. It used to be that it was soldered on the board with the Mac Minis, right? And you couldn't upgrade it back at the 2014 Mac Mini. But now it's not only soldered on the board; it's actually in the processor itself, in that chip.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Well, that would be why you can't upgrade the RAM. It would be nice to see a 32 gig version of that. But to be honest with you, I've been using 16 for a long time. If you're doing a lot of video editing or something like that, there's benefits to having more. But clearly, for most of us, we're not doing lots of video editing. This is buy the 16. Don't cheap out and get the 8. Get the 16. You'll be much happier, and your computer will have a much longer useful life, shall we say, right? All right, cool. Well, I'm impressed. I'm truly impressed. So if people want to contact you, say they want to hire you to help them with some FileMaker work, how do they do that?
Well, the easiest way is through the website. Here you can see do4usoftware.com. When I go there, this is what the website looks like.
There we go. That's awesome. Yep.
And one of the ways is to scroll down and just type in a question here or schedule a call. That will actually put that call directly in my calendar. Or they can just go through whatever they like. And if they contact us from a specific page, we even know which page they came from and what they are interested in. So basically, this is the easiest way how to contact us, how to get in touch with us, and also how to see what we are doing.
So pretty good stuff from HOnza there. So that is a good video. I'm not sure because the video was basically over at that point. So real quick, updated information. So let's see. So Jacob Taylor, are you back? Are you back to where you're at? Where are you?
I'm available. Yes.
You are available. So it's been a fairly vigorous conversation. So we've talked about the performance part a little bit. And so let's talk about like everything that's not part of this. So there's been a conversation about PDFs. So the PDF conversation, always like PDFs and FileMaker, PDFs and FileMaker, PDFs and FileMaker. And so I kind of hammered on this last week, but I guess we can do it again. There always seems to be an issue with doing interactive PDFs in FileMaker on a Windows machine. So you want to walk us through this briefly here? I can find a sample file and pop it open here.
Sure. And are you on 19.2 or 19.3?
I'm on 19.3, but I'm on a Mac. But I want to frame this conversation. So what are people complaining about real quick on stuff?
The basic issue people are running into is either and it might be two different problems. We'll see. But there's basically two issues people are coming up with, and they have the same behavior, which is you can't see, you put a web viewer in, you put a container preview on, you have interactive containers, you put a PDF into it, users go in, they look at it, either nothing shows up, they get some kind of a cryptic error, stuff like that. But short version is it doesn't work. And that there's a couple things that are there. There are historic issues with displaying PDFs, just because of like Adobe plugin will interfere sometimes, or other plugins will interfere if you're not using Adobe sometimes. But newer browsers like have a built-in PDF viewer, and so that general concept actually was just, we'll default to whatever the browser is going to do. That's kind of what they're going with now for specifically PDFs on Windows in FileMaker Pro as of FileMaker Pro 19.3,
Yeah.
because they come with that new web viewer component. Microsoft Edge and the Edge web viewer component have a PDF viewer built into them, like Chrome does, and half the other browsers these days. They come with that kind of, just it's table stakes.
Right.
And so Claris is kind of deferring to that and going, that'll handle it. Like, we don't have to do anything. For viewing purposes, this is perfect. If you need to edit something, you're already going to be popping that out and firing up Adobe or something.
It's perfect if it works. Right. Okay, so I want to frame. I mean, you're talking about like this is like the most, like you're like a Microsoft or an Adobe representative, except the problem is we're having this conversation because it doesn't work.
No, everything I just said are each of those points are places at which it can fail. So, right. and it's especially true if you have these, which is what FileMaker is good at, the mixed, the mixed set of clients. You have Windows, Go, Mac, all this stuff together, and you're trying to get everybody on the same solution. And like, if what you're talking about is core FileMaker features, generally that works. But there's some little stuff like this where with PDFs or previews and stuff like that, where FileMaker has to reach out into the operating system and do stuff. Every time you hear something like that happening, it's a risk that something breaks. Maybe Claris's fault, maybe not. Maybe something completely unrelated.
I have it on screen right here, right now. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on this. So this is a sample of a container that we have that's run. It's a sample file. And so this is a blank file. I just turned it on. And so you saw, for those of you who saw this a second ago, I dragged a PDF in there. And so on the Mac, because of the built-in library on the Macintosh, FileMaker goes to the Mac and says, give me a rendering, a thumbnail of the first page of the PDF. It works on Word, Excel, a bunch of different documents. And on Windows, you're limited to mostly images on this. So if you drag and drop the same file on a Windows environment, you're going to get the little Adobe icon. You don't get the thumbnail, which is kind of an unfortunate negative. Now, I'm not going to get into Christian Schmidt's conversation. Christian's over there raising holy hell, I'm sure. If he hasn't typed it, he will. Just use the Monkey Bread plugin. So we're talking about the default basic parts of the FileMaker platform. If I click on this and I take a look at down here, this is this conversation people keep having. So what happens, Claris comes out with a feature. Especially like you said, Claris doesn't really worry about the feature. They just throw it over the fence to the operating system, and the operating system handles that, especially in media and especially on Windows, right? Listen, Bill Gates didn't even want to do Windows until Steve Jobs showed him how to do it, okay? And then that guy has been chasing Steve Jobs ever since, and they're still chasing him. And the reality is that media integration, smooth media integration is not what Windows does. Frequently, whenever I do with Windows, it's always a fight to get it to do what I want it to do. And so what Claris does, they have this option right here, and I really wish they would relabel the option. Basically, I'm going to zoom in on my computer down here. So if I click on the container up here, there's two image options down here. We talk about this in our training quite a bit. Basically, the top option, it shouldn't say really for images. It just should say, show a thumbnail if it can, but basically don't do anything. So this should say don't do nothing, okay? Do nothing, okay? And then this says tell the operating system to do something, and good luck, grab your ass and hold on, because it may or may not work. So this is give it to the operating system, it'll try to do something. This is don't do nothing. And so this option right here, because it's don't do nothing, right, works pretty damn well reliably. And what you want to do on Windows, I do the same on Mac because of performance issues, turning this option on down here is a major performance hit on your FileMaker solution. Just is. If you have a bunch of records in here and you're flipping through the records, trust me, this is a giant a sucking sound of the performance coming out of your computer, making the screen render slower, making the whole computer run slower as it attempts to do this. And so what we do is on ours, once again, we put a button down below here and we say open. If you want to like interact with it, read it, interact with it, edit it, you're going to press the button, it fires it, it saves it to a temp directory or onto the desktop, and then it goes then outside of FileMaker, totally outside of FileMaker, it goes to the operating system and says, open it up. And the operating system then is out away from FileMaker. So if the operating system does donuts or goes bonkers or Adobe Reader isn't the right reader or whatever it's going to do, that's a separate problem, okay? It's the operating system do it. It's clearly an operating system problem. If you turn this on and give it to your customer and it malfunctions, it's a problem when frequently probably it's not really a FileMaker issue, right? So very, very, very important to understand that. So and of course, if you want the thumbnailing, so now it's an interactive mode. I'm on a Mac, so it's going to kind of work, right? And I can select stuff and move it around. But this was a performance hit. If you were looking at the processor on this when it ran, it would have like did a little something real quick, right? And so you're like, well, that's so great. I want to turn that on, except it fails a lot on Windows. People over here on Discord losing their minds, right? Absolutely losing their minds over here, right? I could read all the conversations, right? So, so Snorky, Moki, Snorky Kitos, Moki is like, hey, shouldn't I turn this on? Don't turn it on. Listen, it's like when I say, what do we do when we set up a FileMaker server? Set the RAM cache, make sure it doesn't auto-open files, run lots of backups, like more backups than you need on different volumes. And this is like that same list of rules that are engraved in stone in your life. Unless you want your phone to ring and people to call and complain, do not use interactive containers, period, right? If you don't want to lose your database, make backups. If you want your FileMaker server to run fast, make sure you have the RAM cache set correctly, right? So this is like one of those things. And the fact that what's happened is on 19.3 on Windows now, the errors are different, but you're still getting an error on Windows. It's a different error now, right, Jacob? I mean, it's like instead of a blank thing, you're getting an error message or whatever, right? So
yeah.
Yeah.
The issue that we're having specifically with the 19.3 ones is people are, you'll go to whatever the record is that's supposed to show this PDF in the box in your little preview, and it'll give you it's a super cryptic error. It says something like cannot connect to 127.0.0.1, which the first time I saw it actually made me ask them if they had like security software running on their computer that was intercepting everything, because that's the kind of issue you'd see if, I don't know, your antivirus is getting in the way or something like that. And I gather that's not the case because there's other people and they run, different computers with different, that kind of stuff. And so it just somewhere in there, there's some kind of an issue. We may get a 19.3.2 out of it or something like that. So we'll see.
Yeah, but it's still, at the end of the day, it's still going to be an error because they're not going to be able to fix the issue, right? It's always going to be this Microsoft, Adobe, and whatever other PDF breeder that you've installed, right?
So we'll see. We'll see, because so Adobe would have to, for example, to interfere in this scenario, Adobe would have to install their plugin, I think, into the web viewer component, and I would have to do research. I don't know what the capabilities of that are, if it even does the plugins and stuff. I know there's a bunch of backwards compatibility crap that Microsoft has put in there. Like horrific old IE code will still run, even everybody's talking about Windows 11 these days or whatever. And the death of IE. Well, actually, IE's still in there, so just don't even.
Yeah, don't even talk about the death of IE.
People have stuff that they spent $40 billion on that runs in IE, and that's the only thing it runs in, and that they'll just write a check to Microsoft, like, don't worry about it. But but for the rest of us, I don't know if Adobe's going to be able to put plugins inside that web viewer area. If they can, then it may still continue to be an issue. If they cannot, then this may, I'm not going to say permanently solve the problem, because there's always going to be some new issue, but it could resolve a chunk of those issues. So we're hopeful. I'm hopeful.
Phone complaints? No phone. Here we go. Simulate. Yeah. Okay, which one do you want?
The phone call with the smiling face or the phone call with the frowny face?
No phone call, smiley face. See?
Oh, no phone call, smiling face. There you go.
Versus the.
We want no phone calls. Yeah, ideally no phone calls.
This is literally, this is like one of the dumbest. This is literally one of the dumbest conversations on the planet. It's like, I don't want to do backups. Why? It takes too much memory on my hard drive. Okay. Literally, folks, this is the kind of conversation we're having. So for those of you who like, so if I go back to non-interactive containers over here, right? And I say, don't do nothing, right? And I go back to browse mode, then we get our thumbnail. Windows doesn't do that. It gives you the icon. If you want the icon, which I think is really awesome, Monkey Bread's plugin, and it will give you a PDF render and allow you to stick it in there, right? I'm pretty sure. So If the you're asking Adobe and Microsoft and Apple and listen, Claris can't even write technical documentation. They're gonna call Adobe with a CEO and say, "Yo, we're gonna have a moment over here." And Microsoft, we're gonna get your CEO over here. We're gonna have a powwow about PDFs on FileMaker, which is a competitive product. Right, I'm done talking about that. We are now. If you keep talking about this, I will ban you from the Discord server. You will be banned. You're going to be blown into space like the alien. The door opens, it tries to get out, and you blow it into space. All right, so other questions about 19.3 besides Microsoft Media doesn't really always work great, especially if they're dependent upon some other company like Adobe. Okay, other questions? We have conversations, topics. Let's see. So I've got the sample file there. I'm going to zoom all the way out. I got someone's order here for something. FileMaker, buying copies of license of FileMaker. What else do I have? Okay, so 19.3. So it's out, it's running. Do we trust the app for FileMaker server, Jacob Taylor? Do we trust it?
I think we're not yet endorsing it. We're going to be putting people on new 19.3 servers probably before Friday this week. And I assume at some point someone's going to email me, because this always happens. One of our customers that likes to do their own stunts will upgrade it, and if they have issues, I will hear about it, because they'll email with their hair on fire.
A customer who does their own stunts. I like that. I like that. Do you hire a stunt man for the movie? It's like Tom Cruise, right? The fact that Tom Cruise has not killed himself. You know, someday Tom Cruise will die in a horrific crash of a helicopter or something because he's doing some stunt. Because he does his own stunts. But yeah, so we're gonna have some customers that are gonna do their own stunts. Either will be successful or fail. We will provide that data back to everyone loosely, right, Jacob Taylor?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I guess if I don't get an email about that by Friday, that probably means Claris did a really good job with 19.3. Because there's a couple customers. There's one I'm thinking of just off the top of my head who always does that, and then just biffs their chin every time whenever there's been an issue that they've run into with the first version of something that came out. So we'll see. I'll get that email here. It'll probably show up tomorrow.
So for those of you wondering how this works, right, with Linux, right? Maybe there's an exception to the case, but generally. So we talked about the customer interaction where a customer has a crisis problem and Claris engineers fix this ultra whatever gnarly bug. They give a build of FileMaker 19.3.0 whatever. Remember, because the builds of FileMaker that we have are 43, so there was builds whatever before that. So they have those early builds. They can test it and run it and make sure it's fixed. Normally the way it works with ETS is here's what happens with Claris. They say, here's the testing software that's coming up. We want you to check it out, but don't use it on anything important you're not willing to lose. So promptly, no one uses it with their day-to-day stuff, which is fine, except that then no one really tests it. So has anyone used mission-critical customer-facing databases on Linux with 19.3 yet? Not unless they installed it last Wednesday and they've been using it ever since, right? On day one. Hasn't happened.
If you're one of my customers and you're watching and you've done that, shoot me an email and tell me how it went.
Yeah. That's great, right? So it's
positive and negative stories, please.
Yeah. So there's on Discord, there's some crazy. I can't show it to you, but if you're on the Discord side, there's some crazy animated GIFs, and of course you got the CEO of Microsoft up there, who's actually a fairly competent guy, from what I understand. I just don't see him caring much about Claris and their web viewer issues with container rendering, right? It's just, it's just not going to happen, man. So yeah, Margaret, what else you got? You got any questions coming up?
I mean, the only one that I have is like a really, no, there's no questions anyone's currently asking. Maybe someone will type one. David Angel has questions. All the tests that were with clients, no server tests with M1.
Well, here's the rub with HOnza. He's a little bit hard to understand with his accent, and I'm pretty sure he was trying to explain that to me. I think he did some testing with the M1 on that. It's clearly much, much, much faster on the server. So your fastest scenario is an M1 in the local office in the same building as your M1 clients. Then you have almost no latency slowdown over the network. And you're going to get probably double performance over what you had before, at least. But most operations like RCC doesn't really host the servers in the office anymore, unless it's like my personal server that I use to learn. I tell every one of my senior engineers, the engineers are gone. There was an engineer that was here a second, a little bit ago. But I tell all the engineers to run their own FileMaker server at home and to be familiar with it and run some databases on it themselves. And some of them do and some of them don't. But then they go to the certification test and they find out that, guess what? FileMaker server is all over that test, big time. So we can't take the FileMaker certification test without having that in your inventory already, right? So anyway. All right, Margaret, there's no more questions. I'm shocked. It's kind of an interesting day, but we are kind of wrapping up towards the end here. So it's I think it's a pretty solid release. And then, yeah, Ken, that's great. Gosh, I need that. How do Margaret, can you show that? Can you bring over Discord?
Yeah, I can.
Move me over a little to something.
We're going to minimize you. No, you're not being minimized. You're just being shuffled. You've been shuffled.
Shuffle me to the right and then put that in there. There's some great, and you have to click on Discord so it animates the GIFs, right? So
yes,
that's some fun. This is the eye contact, right? Very important, right? So, talking to people. And so people ask, what are we doing here and why we do what we do? And the reality of all this is that just to share the knowledge that we have. And so some of you want to know, what have we learned since last Wednesday? Well, mostly we're waiting for someone else to explode themselves, right? To perform their own stunts, die a horrible death. Then we will report like the news item. So-and-so has put their server on and they're now on fire. And we apologize. Sorry for that. And then the next person, they tried to do Corretto and it didn't work. So I would say I would use it on the clients for sure right now. I don't know. I'd use it just on server yet. That was a tricky, freaky tricky Lori. I saw that. I was not there, but I remember that live on the news when that happened, and they really butchered that air show up. There's some really awesome footage of that flying. It's just bad. The jets hit, and then 2 or 3 of them cartwheeled, jet fueled all into the crowd and just cooked like 100 people. It's really horrible. But yes, we try not to do that with our customers. We don't want them to die. We like happy customers that don't call me, right? So no waiting, right? So Apple's working on the new processor, the M1X, and then Windows is working on 11. I keep seeing jokes about this, right? What's the status they had the press release last week for Windows 11? You Windows people, you want to give me like a quick snapshot alert update on the Windows 11 action? What's going on there?
Everybody's super mad about it because it's not gonna. They're intentionally restricting it to basically new computers. And everyone's really mad about it, and they're all like looking at Apple over here, who's like still supporting 2014 Mac Minis and a couple. I think I saw somebody cite a limited 2013 laptop or something that still has support as well.
Yeah.
And they're pointing at that, and it's because there are flagship like $4,000 Surface computers, which Microsoft makes, that won't run 11.
If you're going to be Microsoft and be all that kind of stuff, you got to be as flexible as possible. It sounds like they don't want to be flexible. So if you're going to be kind of not flexible, but kind of like anally retentive, I think that you could describe Steve Jobs that way, which the company kind of still is that way, then you better make a really superior product. And if you're going to make a product that has issues and you're anally retentive, that should go over real well with your customers, right? So. Okay, well, that's about it for today. There's all sorts of stuff coming up here. So, Margaret, can you cross-post some of the stuff over here? Something about a security chip and trusted platform.
Yeah, you just asked what one of the requirements was for Windows 11, which is a TPM version 2 chip, and there's some allowance for a TPM 1.2 chip. And he's like, "What's a TPM chip?" And it's a type of security module. It's kind of it. I don't think they do quite the same thing, but it's similar to the T2 chips. If you remember when those were introduced into the Macs. I think
Oh,
they perform a similar function.
Yeah.
They maybe I don't
It
know
keeps
if they're
someone
like,
from putting a drive onto your machine and booting around it and then getting in your operating system, that kind of stuff.
yeah, that's part of it. That part of it is specific to the Mac, like, and how Apple built that in. More generally, what those chips do is, like, you need to be able to generate secure random numbers and stuff like that for the cryptographic math and stuff on your computer. This does that, guaranteed from the manufacturer, and
Okay.
that kind of thing. They
Assuming
also
that
speed up, like, yeah,
assuming that you
disk
trust the
encryption and stuff.
manufacturer is your neighbor's best friend who's building these in his garage, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah, but you have to trust that. You don't have a choice in that at this point. So unless you're the NSA or somebody with checkbook like that. So
all right, so real quick, question on YouTube. There's two questions on YouTube. Gil says, waiting for his M1 minis to be shipped to us. What do you use as a physical backup? I'm assuming like a Mac Mini with a backup FileMaker server running on it. And he says Thunderbolt SSDs. The new Mac Mini M1s you're going to have. Okay, so I don't think. Oh, that's right. I gave you your new dock. So they come with USB-C. I was about to grab your dock, but it went back to the office. They come with USB-C on them. And so it's kind of a mess the way USB is, but it's all these companies doing this stuff. So there's form factors. There's the design of the plug. So you got USB-A, a little flat thing that we've seen forever with half the thing on it. Then you got USB-B, which is like the weird square thing. And then you've got USB-C, which is the kind of looks like it's got rounded on the corners, right? So it's kind of flat and rounded on the edges. That's USB-C. USB-C typically is going to be pretty damn fast. USB-A can be fast if it's USB-A with 3.2 whatever USB protocol.
Yeah, 3.1, 3.2 plus.
Yeah, with 3.2 plus or something. So the point is, probably I would, for maximum speed on a backup, I would get a USB-C, right? And then a drive that's an SSD. If you can get an NVMe drive, maybe those are working reliably now. You might want to look at Mac. OWC makes a lot of dedicated kind of external stuff for the Macs. The other thing is get a dock. All my M1s that are client machines, I put a dock. It's a form factor. It's like the size of the Mac Mini, but it's about this tall. You take one of the USB-Cs out of the Mac Mini and you jack it into that dock so it gets that high speed. Then it has like another couple of USB-Cs, has like 3 or 4 more USB-As on it, and it has under the side a spot for a 2.5 inch drive SSD under the bottom of it. So it's really kind of this really great little, it's like $90 is this dock thing. It really kicks in. Yeah. So that's actually a mini. So there's an image, Margaret, if you can, are you still seeing Discord on the live stream, Margaret?
Yes.
So on the picture there on the right is USB-A. On the middle picture is USB-B, but it's mini. And then on the left is USB micro on the left. That's B micro on the left. So B mini. So that's all this stuff. It's crazy. So USB-C is not even actually is not in the photo. So there, if someone wants to post a photo of USB-C, feel free, but none of those are USB-C. So USB-C is kind of very rectangular. Imagine, someone will post it. All right, there you go. So that is an adapter on there. For those of you who see that, the USB-A on the left. You want to zoom in on USB-C. Or there's another one there, kind of that second one from the left. So USB-A on the left. There you go. Good picture right there. So it's kind of rectangular with rounded sides on it. That's USB-C. Pretty damn fast. Once again, ABC is the form factor, what it looks like. It doesn't tell you the speed of the crap going through the wires, right?
Yeah.
So
because you can do Thunderbolt, which is a protocol and a plug type, or was a plug type.
Yeah.
But it was a protocol also. So if you say the plug type is the form factor, it's what it looks like. So you could have a Thunderbolt plug. You could also have a Thunderbolt communication, and that Thunderbolt communication can go over a USB-C jack. Yeah. So Mac Mini has USB-A running at high speed, and they also have USB-C running at high speed. I think the USB-C probably is 40 megabits a second. That's that high speed, but
it's always relevant. In 5 years, it'll be much, much faster than that. So tomorrow, what is on the tap for tomorrow? Mark, you want to bring up the schedule for tomorrow?
I can. Give me a second. I think we didn't do that earlier. Okay, so we
And
have.
I can't see it, so you're going to have to
I'll
walk
just
through it.
rattle it off. Tomorrow we have Jacob Taylor back for the deep dive on the FileMaker 19.3 bug fixes. There's supposed to be quite a few, so that should be fun. Wednesday, Christian Smith returns with MBS and FileMaker custom functions run via plugin. He released some new stuff. We'll be going over that. Be very cool, I'm sure. Thursday.
If you don't have it, go buy it. Well, first buy my training, then buy his if you have any money left over. Right? So in that order. Thank you.
Thursday, we are going to do a live test of Claris's new quick authoring, which is like the beginner system for building like the most basic of basic apps. And see how that goes. See if it's intuitive. It should be fun. Yes, and then after that, we have Kyle Williams returns with FileMaker text editors. I'm sure that'll be really fun. And then on Monday and Tuesday, Nick is back. So we are going to be discussing image galleries in FileMaker.
The return of Nick. Ken says show on Monday.
I'm sure it will be, and you know what? I'll be the one.
Stop. That's
What?
a good question.
Oh, right.
Well, but it's not really. But is it? Okay. So for those of you, this is the American moment. All of you that are not in the United States, just take a break. Okay. So what is the word on this? Right? It is observed holiday. Then we can't have a Monday.
Okay, then I will talk to Nick.
You have to push Nick back because I was wondering about that. July 4th is Sunday, and so do people get the day off, the extra?
Yes.
Yeah,
Monday is the observed day. So
well then I'm out of here, baby. Nick.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. That is super July 4th right there for those of you on Discord. If you want to see that.
I mean, do I want to actually show that? Like,
you can. That's fine. It's just Ken dancing after he got out of his balloon. All right. So that's it for today, everyone. We appreciate it. We'll be back tomorrow. Jacob Taylor, you going to be ready tomorrow?
Yes, sir.
Are you stoked? Are you pumped? You ready to go?
Yeah, we're going to do a deep dive on all the bugs that were fixed. Maybe a couple of the new features we'll see. Might come out a couple of them. But
all right, cool. All right, well, good luck on that. I might be or may not be around. Yeah, my eyes. I've been scorched for life. All right, Moki, we'll catch you everyone tomorrow. Thanks. See ya. Roll closing credits.
Guys just stepped up the whole way. Calm, cool, collected. The quarterback, great read, good patience. More importantly, great job up front protecting this quarterback to give you a chance. And that's all you can ask for.
Try to rally down 10. 9:25 to go here in the fourth. Short motion by Amendola from the left. Brady takes the shotgun snap, stands in, throws it left for Amendola, reaches up and snaps a high throw and lands inside the 10, rolling to the 9. Ball slightly behind him, but then he makes the grab.